Good afternoon. Is it the end of the road for the motorcar or for the automobile? My name's Niall Crowley. I'm the producer and chair. Yeah, the motorcar that shaped so much of the 20th century social and cultural life and came to symbolise Western prosperity and freedom. In the 21st century, however, the dream of the motorcar seems to be running out of gas. So that's kind of what we're here to discuss. Kicking us off will be, on my right, is Tamanda Hartness, who's a journalist, writer, broadcaster, presenter of Radio 4's Future Proofing and How to Disagree, and the author of Big Data, Does Size Matter, amongst other books, I think. Second will be Nigel Ruddock, who's on my left. Nigel's an accountant, an insolvency specialist, trustee, former head and chairman of Automotive Services, Grant Thornton. And then thirdly is Simon Nash. Simon's an environmentalist, speaker, activist, and founder of Green Oil Bicycle Lubes. And finally, we have Hilton Holloway. He's the founder of the brilliant 5054 magazine, which I highly recommend. He's an automotive industry writer and specialist and a future tech specialist, and he's the author of one of the Academy of Ideas pamphlets on, is it the Freedom of the Open Road or something? Simon, can you give us your thoughts or your perspective?
Yeah, now one of the great things I want to say about the battle of ideas is you can completely disagree with someone and still be friends afterwards. And I'll remind everyone that when I say this, I quite like electric scooters. I think they are part of the transport future, and I think they will lead to the decline, even the end of the road of the automobile in town centres. But let's see the other side of it. Now imagine for a moment the freedom of the car, the open roads, the imaginary cityscape, empty streets, swept by autumn leaves, the woman and the handsome man smile at you as you drive past. But in reality, everyone else had the same idea that Sunday morning. The road is blocked, the city is full of fumes, and the beautiful people scowl at you as the pollution caused by your now car is annoying them and it's covered in soot. This is the reality, unfortunately. The car adverts have been lying. And let's talk about the problem of the car. Like air pollution, so 40,000 premature deaths a year, according to the Royal College of Physicians, from air pollution in the UK, 40,000 lives. Climate change, I think climate change is a problem. It causes poverty in other countries, rains, floods, extreme heat, and road transport is responsible for 27% of UK carbon emissions. And cars are a big part of that. Oil dependency is a patriotic reason to perhaps accelerate the decline of the automobile. We're a net importer of oil. That means money leaving the country. Of course, no politicians talk about the balance of payments anymore. I think that should come back on the agenda, and actually cars are almost draining the economy by relying on the import of oil currently. Health again, people are obsessed by the NHS, save the NHS, give more money to the NHS. Well, obesity costs the NHS £6.5 billion a year, and car use is the largest cause of obesity. If you're running for a bus or cycling or even a bit chilly on an e-scooter, you're going to be a lot healthier. So I think for a healthier Great Britain, car use should be cut a lot. Now, low traffic neighbourhoods, a controversial subject. Remind you again, we can be friends afterwards and disagree. They've made the 90s and the 80s reclaim the streets protests a reality. Streets have been reclaimed by plants and for children to play in away from cars. They've made cycling safer in town centres, and it has made e-scooters a great transport solution. I would say it's a curious fact that we have this body called Parliament who seems to exist to just keep making more and more laws. You sort of take it to this logical conclusion. Everything would eventually be illegal if they keep passing more laws. And the reason for Parliament is to pass laws for new technologies. That's the justification for Parliament, and rightly so. They failed to legalise e-scooters, and that's just a failure of government and not a reason to not embrace e-scooters, which fulfil the task of a car, which is to move a human from one place to another. Another solution to the problem of the car is actually mini mobility, or actually smaller cars. Now, amongst you are the intellectual elites. Perhaps you've never worked on a farm or at a festival. But at these places, you get these small sort of farm vehicles, almost like a giant golf cart. They're speed limited to 15 or 25 miles an hour. And you don't even need a driving license. I think you can drive them from the age of 12. These are ideal for town centres when vehicles are slow moving. The fact they are slow moving means you don't need the tons of metal, the airbags, all the padding. You don't need any of that. And according to McKinsey, this kind of mini mobility, these small, very small electric vehicles that don't require a license, could be a $300 to $500 million market. And there's no reason to have a car that goes at 70 miles an hour in a town centre. In fact, it'd be illegal to take it up to that speed limit. So perhaps you don't need all the things around the car and the tons of metal around you. Cycling is great. Bicycles make people fit and save them money. Cars do the opposite. They make you fat and cost you money. So the decline of the automobile is great for your wallet as well. We do, of course, live in a very rich country. It's easy to forget that. Most people are not choosing between heating and eating, as the media like to promote. They're choosing to drive their car to the gym, to then sit on a bicycle in the gym to lose the calories which they have gained from driving a car too much. And then whilst riding the bicycle in the gym, they're probably watching a TV screen of somebody driving a car to the gym. It's madness, and I think people should just ride a bicycle in the first place. E-scooters and bicycles carry out the main role of a car, as I say, which is moving one human. You have cargo bicycles now, which are great, and you can see couriers from DHL to UPS using these semi-electric bikes to carry huge loads. Freddy's Flowers, the delivery company, flowers, they have like 100 boxes of flowers on one bicycle, negating the necessity of the automobile. I do think we're in a very wealthy country. I do think some of the aspects we've lost are the sense of community. That's one of the downsides of the country being richer. We can recreate that community. I do think public transport, there are lots of signs on the bus almost criminalising talking to someone on the bus these days. But I do think buses and public transport do create a sense of community. You might meet your neighbours, you might make new friends. Someone's got a dog, you might stroke the dog and start a conversation. This community aspect to public transport is very positive, and that's lost if you own a metal box in your car. Is it the end of the road for the automobile? Well, in town centres, yes it is, and literally it is the case, because the end of the road has a nice low traffic neighbourhood plant plot at the end of it. So in terms of health, national income, and children wanting to breathe and play, we all benefit.
Great. Thank you very much.
Or you can cycle somewhere that you shouldn't be limited to, essentially a Victorian model of where your horizon should be. And I'm okay. I'll stop there.
Simon, what do you think of the choice argument? Do you think that what you're advocating is kind of taking away choice from people, especially working class people who, only in recent decades been able to afford to get around?
Yeah, I guess the counter argument would be fewer cars would mean more public transport, and lots of countryside bus routes have been killed by the proliferation of the motor car, which then means the really poor people can't afford or can't go anywhere because they need to have a car now nor a bus route. I do believe in human choice. The Lord Sumption argument, he said, well, we could have a national speed limit of 20 miles an hour and that would make road deaths zero. But of course we don't live just to avoid death. And so it's interesting, the chap there, he said, well, there are more cycling injuries, it's more hazardous. Well, it's like 1 death per so many journeys per car, and then 11 injuries per bike. Well, I mean, maybe neither of those figures are relevant. We should have the freedom to potentially injure ourselves. I know the British Heart Foundation say actually the health benefits of cycling negates the slight higher risk of injury. The rain arguments, well, come on, let's man up. We can face a bit of rain, we're Brits. On the road space argument, like low traffic neighbourhoods, and I appreciate they're an issue, and if it's just diverting traffic elsewhere, there is this idea that the more roads, build it and they will come. Like you build more roads, people drive more. You reduce the road space, people will have less road space to drive and think, well, actually, I'm going to take public transport instead. I think the argument against LTN is like, because it diverts traffic to this other road, well, just put an LTN on that other road as well, and then problem solved, right? I had some great points as well, like the thing about resources. Yeah, I mean, the mining thing, people often say, oh yeah, well, where'd the minerals come from? You know, I saw there's a film called Blood on the Mobile. A lot of the Congolese miners are like, well, I won't do the accent, but they're like, well, the NGOs are coming here and they want to take away our livelihoods, and they are happy to go into the mines. You can have clean mining conditions. I mean, is the argument against mining, I mean, are we going to stop using like plastic buttons on our clothing? Are we going to stop using our iPhones? I just see this uniquely, oh, well, batteries require mining. I mean, lots of things require mining. Is all mining bad? And you can recycle. Like there was a PR company paid for by General Motors, and their conclusion was driving a Humvee 10 miles is more eco-friendly than driving a Toyota Prius 10 miles due to the production costs. And it turns out their figures were made up. A Humvee wasn't more eco-friendly than a semi-electric car. So I think we do need to look into those figures and people that say that. On the AI...
Okay. Can you save that point? Because
Sure.
But we do need to reduce the impact, and I have got some ideas, simple ideas for reducing the impact of cars. One is having more one-way streets in local neighbourhoods. So instead of having no cars, you have a one-way street where you could then have a bike lane or more parking. The second idea is standardising all of these bicycles that you can rent. There seems to be about 4 or 5 different companies now, and I never seem to have the right app for that bike. The third idea is having more multi-storey car parks on the edge of cities where you could have your second or third vehicle parked up in that multi-storey, and then you use your micro electric vehicle to go around the city. But when you do that long distance journey to Wales, you change over with your second car, or you rent a car efficiently in the multi-storey. The final idea is, with that multi-storey option available, more people can switch over to small electric vehicles. And as Mr. Nasher, I think Mr. Nasher said, that we could have, we should have a law against these big, heavy vehicles. So certainly these SUVs are unnecessary for 99% of people.
All right, thank you very much.
I just had a very quick point to make about the viability of adopting electric vehicles en masse in the coming years, which I think Nigel touched on very, very briefly, was just about grid capacity. So it's something that doesn't really ever seem to get talked about much, but I do believe that, you know, if everybody were to adopt in this country electric vehicles en masse, electricity production in the UK would have to more or less double to reach that, which is obviously a huge undertaking, and obviously something you would have to question, does the country really want to be doing that as well? So I'd be interested to know if anyone on the panel had any views about that.
Okay.
I'm a resident of Manchester, and I was just wondering if the panel wanted to discuss, this debate in the context of Manchester.
I agree with Simon. I think actually in city centres, simply getting from A to B is going to necessitate other means because the congestion is too difficult. And I think also electric vehicles, once the infrastructure grid issues are sorted, once the economics are sorted, there's clearly going to be a shift towards them.
Stop quicker than a human in slippery shoes. I'm completely serious. Trolleyology isn't a thing. And all I can say is, yes, it's too crowded in town, but people really need to have the choice and the freedom and the affordability, because it's the biggest lift to your quality of life.
Great, thank you very much. Simon, can you...
Yeah, about the vision of the national grid. Imagining, I'm stealing someone else's words from previous sessions, 1751. Oh, I'm burning wood in my house. What's this coal thing? Electricity. What, you're going to put like light bulbs on every single building in the entire country and run this national grid? That is mental. I think we could actually electrify cars. And the chap at the back said it's 1.5 million cars produced a year. So inevitably, it is a slow change to electric cars, and I think the national grid could deal with that. I think autonomous vehicles are quite dangerous. We already have, I think there is potentially a conspiracy. New cars seem to have dazzlingly bright headlights. They make it very unpleasant to drive and to cycle. And actually, a friend of mine here who was a victim of ABS, because the car in front, it stopped because of some leaves. He crashed into the back. Legally, the liability was his for crashing into the back of the car. So already, this trolley problem is actually just based on the law and not good. I think we should try and emulate the Netherlands. They have bicycles everywhere. Children are taken to school on bicycle. Disabled people can still use cars and small electric vehicles, and they have less obesity and better health. And I think that's a good vision for the UK and the world. So that would be my vision for the future.
Great, thank you very much for your time. Nigel, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just pick up on the Manchester point, but I might just move the answer to Norway. We're seeing clean air zones come in. I think part of the M6, I think, is now down to 60 miles an hour.
Freedom and choice are human values that we should defend, and we should harness human ingenuity to find engineering solutions that mean we can expand that choice and not restrict it.
Great, thank you. Can we thank our panel? Thank you to everyone. That's it.
Journey anyway, in which case they're just spending a longer time, taking a longer journey in traffic, which is in practice what has happened. So overall emissions are likely to have increased. Or they just stay in their home, perhaps that's the idea, and the benefits of mobility and freedom which the automobile has brought to society have disappeared completely for large groups of people. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.